What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about this narrative that Starfield isn't being talked about, that the popularity around Starfield isn't there. There's some really weird stuff going on that I factually disagree with, and I think you can also find statistics that kind of disprove it as well. But let's start with some general things first. Number one, are these real people? Yes. Are they people that take themselves all that seriously? Probably not. I've said this time and time again, but whenever you do things like this, I think you always have to re-say it. Console warriors, I think, are the worst people, some of the worst people on planet Earth. Maybe not the worst people on planet Earth, but the hypocrisy always shows, one thing applies to something, but another thing doesn't apply, but it would if it was the other console. And at the end of the day, console warrior people that try to play it down the middle, I have actually even less respect for. I would almost prefer a console warrior to fully and just blatantly admit that they only prefer, the one thing as opposed to the other. And even when the one thing has problems or whatever, you still it's just so apparent that you're a fanboy of that one thing. I'd actually prefer that than somebody that everybody knows is a fanboy, but kind of pretends that they're not, all right? That's just one thing I kind of want to get out of the way right in the beginning of this video. I don't really take these people all that seriously. Part of it is that hypocritical kind of thing. I think that they just kind of play the favorites and they do something for one thing, but they wouldn't do it for something else. It's very, very strange to me why they do it in the first place. I guess it's for clicks. I guess it's for views. And I guess in that sense, I do actually understand it. Now, is this actually true? Is there no talk for Starfield? Well, I would give them maybe one thing, and that's, I guess, Bethesda's lack of talk about the game. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying talk in general, because obviously they did their little blowout event, right, in June, and they crushed it. In fact, we're going to get back to that June date because there's some interesting data there to look at, later on in this video. I would say, though, ever since then, they have been very, very quiet. There's been things here and there. There's been small little, tidbits, and people have taken those things and ran with it. And again, we're going to talk about that too, because I think really ever since mid-June, it's been the community that has pushed Starfield. And the community is very, very big and very, very powerful. And I don't understand how people don't know that those people exist. I feel like part of it is also just the circle. If you surround yourself with a circle on Twitter, on YouTube, you get people that are in your same kind of group. You're not going to know people, or if you don't look outside that group. That's why I really try to do it as much as possible. You look outside that group just for a little and you realize, oh man, there are hundreds or thousands of other groups that have no idea I exist. I had no idea that they exist. It's okay for that to happen. It's okay to not know that other groups exist, but to spin it into a narrative that Starfield is in trouble or there's something going on, there's something wrong, that's where I kind of draw the line, right? That's where it doesn't really make much sense to me. So again, the narrative is that Starfield isn't really being talked about. There's nothing kind of behind it. And I think, and I believe that it's mainly talking about the excitement for fans, because I think it's taking the approach that maybe Starfield won't do very well when the game releases. Now, maybe it does, maybe it doesn't, right? And we've talked about those things in separate videos. We won't get too much into it now. I think the game is going to be pretty darn good. I think the game is going to be very, very popular at launch, but that's the thing that's going on. I don't think they're talking about the Microsoft, the Bethesda, the Xbox side of things where it's their communication. Maybe that's a little part of it. And again, I would give them that. I would say ever since mid-June, it's been very quiet. Is it uncommon? Well, I think this is the month where it's going to turn around. That's another thing that I guess we can't speak fully to because this month isn't over yet. The game releases really the first day of September, right? And then September 6th for everybody. Obviously, the early access is 5 days early. So this is the last month. Literally, the final day of this month is the last day without Starfield in some people's lives. So this is a month that's very big. I do imagine more info coming from Bethesda. I imagine previews. I imagine journalists are seeing the game. I wouldn't be surprised if influencers got some sort of, digital, they were able to see a couple hours. If you see the skill ups of the world or Mr. Maddie plays, I could imagine all of that stuff happens in this month. Okay, so this would be the month that the communication side between Bethesda and us gets better. But again, I don't really think that is the narrative. I think it's more, oh, the game's in trouble because people aren't talking about it. People aren't excited for that. Well, that's just flat out not true. Number one, you don't even need evidence to, I'll show you stats in a second, but you don't even need those to see, okay, well, if you go on YouTube and you just type it in, just type in Starfield. I actually did this. I did this a few days ago. There's people that have dedicated channels that are just Starfield. There's things on Reddit. People made the galaxy map of every single jump that you can make in the game. Those people are on a different level, to be quite honest with you. But no, I mean, seriously, you go on YouTube, you look it up. My recommended is now filled with just specific Starfield channels that have gone over very, very small details, and they're making videos every day. They're getting hundreds of thousands of views every day. I had always gone to Mr. Matty Plays. That's kind of my go-to Bethesda guy, I guess. I love Retro Rebound, his second channel. His videos are pretty big, but his isn't even the biggest one of the group. There are those channels that dissect Starfield specifically that can get 4, 5, 6, 700,000 views compared to him, which is a lot smaller. And again, I kind of thought he was the big one, right? So that's one thing. That's just using your eyes. And you could say, all right, well, those are just numbers, so you can be kind of selective with that, right? You can pick. Well, I did see people going on the Google Trends thing. I do think Google Trends generally is pretty okay. It is an okay way of doing it. Now, the tough thing is, so they're comparing Starfield and Spider-Man 2. So I messed around with this, I think, far more than they probably messed around with it, right? Because they're looking for a narrative. I'm just trying to figure stuff out. So the issue I find with Spider-Man 2 is actually how you spell it, how you put the words or the letters in a specific order. And they may seem kind of stupid, but it's literally based off people typing these things into the internet and searching for them. So Starfield, one word, very it's just very easy. Spider-Man 2, there's spider, then space, then man, then space 2. There's Spider-Man 2 with a dash in between. There's Marvel's Spider-Man 2 without the dash and then with the dash. So I think one thing that I do just want to kind of make known, right, because I've seen people, again, come up with these comparisons, I think Spider-Man is kind of at a disadvantage because I think people search for it literally different. One person to the next, they might type in Spider-Man 2, but they might do it differently than someone else. It's very hard to do Starfield differently unless you separate the words star and field, but that's not obviously how you do it, right? But with that being said, people are right when they say Starfield has more traffic. That is true. Now, what I think people are doing is looking at the last couple days, which I kind of think is unfair. So what I did, I looked back at the last 90 days, and you can see some kind of peaks, right? So May 25th, which I think was the day that Sony did their event and they showed Spider-Man 2, right? That's a huge, huge peak. So that's actually the biggest Spider-Man 2 has been. I'm going to assume it was that PlayStation Showcase date. I'm pretty sure. If it's not, I have no idea what that date could be. And so that was the highest Spider-Man has ever been. Starfield more than triple. In fact, it actually, I think, almost to the point, tripled that the day they had their Bethesda, showcase or the Starfield showcase. That got, they do it in values of 0 up to 100. That was 100 for Starfield. Spider-Man got 33 on that big day for them. Now, I'm not saying Spider-Man is all time going to be smaller. It's possible as October goes, as September goes, Spider-Man takes a huge, huge jump. But yes, statistically, you had Spider-Man, I guess, beating Starfield for a very, very long time. Starfield absolutely peaked, that day. And, by the time we get to the end of June, early July, they're pretty close. But actually, Starfield is higher. It's about double as high throughout all of July. Now, when we get to San Diego Comic-Con, Spider-Man takes a jump because it went up to 19. That has to be, I believe, that day. Then it's about even, and you go back to July 28th, Spider-Man was actually higher. You go back to July 29th, and they're about even, and then you go to July 30th, and Starfield is 4 points higher. So they're roughly even now. Spider-Man took that thing from San Diego Comic-Con, but really, when Starfield did their big thing, they absolutely blew it out of the water, at any point compared to Spider-Man. And then even after that, they were always higher. They were higher every single day until July 21st. And then Spider-Man had a couple days where it was bigger. Now, again, Starfield is closer. Starfield's coming out first. Early September might be really big and might be a huge. I'm just trying to say this, by the way. I don't know, for I guess console fanboy like reasons, because maybe people think I'm like putting Spider-Man down. I actually am very excited for Spider-Man. This is just what happens, but this was something that I think easily, like factually and statistically, disproves the idea that nobody's talking about Starfield. Number one, people absolutely are talking about Starfield. You can see it with your own eyes. And even on the lower days, like ever since the big days of either of those two, they've been pretty okay. Like even getting in the 4, 5, 6 range, that's compared to the biggest of all time. If you compare it to other games just in general, and also you got to remember it's the summer, people are talking about games just less, people are playing games less. These games are very, very healthy. Now, again, it's a comparison for comparison's sake, I guess, but it shows you Starfield is doing extremely well. And although, yeah, hitting 100 was because of Bethesda. That was the day that they gave all the info. But they gave so much. They gave a lot of info, and it was pretty high for a few days, and then obviously it drops. And since then, it's been carried by the fans. It's been carried by the audience online. People watching again, I mean, like, you have these creators that make these videos daily, right? Not only do they exist, but then like when those videos get 200,000 views in like a day and a half, well, how did they get that? Well, it's because there's 200,000 plus people every day like waiting for, right? And I mean, obviously that's not an exact number. It could be higher, could be lower, but there is clearly an appetite for Starfield. I think it's just outside of some people's like inner circle. So I'm not worried about the excitement or the talk around Starfield. I think it's kind of ridiculous that that's a narrative that's being spun, but it is a dead period of the year. I'm experiencing it. Channels are down, revenue's down, views are down. Maybe they need clicks. I understand that. I actually do get that. Maybe I should do it, but no, I'm not going to. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Make sure you guys are subscribed, bell icon turned on. If you do want to support me though, check out my other links to our Twitter, our Discord, all my other YouTube channels. All the links are in the description below. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you all on the next one.